Welcome back. We are testing out our new formatting by rolling out a new series that we're going to call Over Under. So this is episode 1.
So, like Jess said, this is our DVC disclaimers over under episode number 1, where we're going to discuss attractions, restaurants, rides, things at the Disney parks that are either overrated or underrated. And
purely our opinion.
Yeah, purely opinion based. We have no facts except for we know we're right.
And I don't hate on anybody who loves a particular attraction. Everybody kind of has a personal preference. These are just a few things that we feel are either overrated or underrated.
Right. And we're going to try to keep them localized to a park or a resort or a theme generally every time. And we're going to kind of test the waters. Leave a comment, leave a like if you like it, obviously. And
give us ideas.
And we'll go from there. So Jess is going to kick it off with her first over, and we're going to discuss.
All right, so the location that we picked for episode 1 is Animal Kingdom. And my first over, I don't know how this is going to make people feel, is Kilimanjaro Safari.
Boo, boo.
All right. Let me explain. So I feel the same way about this particular ride that I do kind of about the water parks at Disney World. I don't necessarily come to Disney World to go to a zoo or go to a water park. And that's kind of what the safari is for me. And it isn't a bad ride. The animals are really beautiful, but you're also kind of at the mercy of the weather. If it's too hot out, a lot of the animals are going to be laying in the shade. They're not going to be visible unless you go in the morning. The wait for this ride is usually pretty long. It's just not something on my must-do list every time.
I mean, I know that it is, there's all those things that you said, but I think there's something to be said about being in a car in the United States, driving around and seeing safari type animals. I think that most people don't experience that kind of thing where they live for the most part.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think that it's something that they can do. It's not free. Obviously, it's included in their park admission, but it's something that they can do. I mean, there was a baby giraffe that was born, a couple weeks ago.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's a bad ride. I'm just saying it's not on my must-do list every time. And it's not necessarily something that I'm going to use a fast pass for example.
But everybody in general says that it's a must-do, so you think it's overrated then.
If it's your first time going to Walt Disney World or your first time going to Animal Kingdom and you want to check it out, I think that's great. If you're really into animals, that's great. If animals aren't overly your thing and you're more of a ride person, I don't think you're really missing out too much if you choose not to go.
Well,
so what's your first over?
Before I get into my first over, I am going to say, while I don't think you're wrong, I don't think you're right. I wouldn't say it's overrated, but I do, I don't know, I'm on the fence about that one.
Agree to disagree, that's fine.
I'll have to just agree. I think you might be right, it might be overrated. So my first over is going to generate a lot of hate mail, and it is the Navi River Journey. And here's the thing. The line is too long for a ride that short. It is.
That's a fair point.
For a boat ride, in my mind, I think Pirates, I think Splash Mountain, I think of these rides that take 8, 9, 10 minutes.
Yeah, they're lengthier.
And even the Frozen Ever After ride,
that was a more exciting ride to me, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I feel in my mind, I could be wrong. That ride might be the same length. I haven't even actually looked that up, but
I enjoy it more.
I think that there's not a lot happening. It's busy.
Here's the problem, and here's why I think that I'll agree with you on this one, because it's something that our friend said. We went this past fall, 2018, with friends of ours who had kids, and that was a really awesome trip, and we'll discuss that at some point. But in our conversation, I believe he said, or you said, one of the two of you said, it doesn't tell a story. And I think that's a good point. It's not a bad ride. It's short, and the big payoff is the animatronic at the end. That's the best part of the ride.
That was something I was actually going to step in and say, though. They say that it is the most advanced animatronic out there, and I would believe them if they said that.
I mean, yeah, she looks real, I think. They did a really good job with that.
and there are cool things about the ride. The ride is a cool ride. I don't want to spoil a lot for people that haven't been on it yet.
Kind of already did with the animatronic.
Yeah, but everybody knows about the animatronic by now. But
okay.
If you go on the ride, there are enough things that happen on it that it is a cool ride. I'm not saying that the ride stinks, but I think that everybody overhypes this ride, and the payoff wasn't there for me. And I know a lot of people have had to wait 2 hours plus to get on this ride.
We've seen those wait times too.
Yeah, and I don't think it's worth that. I think that it's overrated.
I mostly agree with you. I wouldn't say that it's a one and done for me, but if I don't go every time, it's not going to hugely break my heart.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to the underrateds now?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and let you do it again. We'll just flop back and forth.
That's fine. Back to me. So my underrated for Animal Kingdom is the ride Dinosaur. And you're giving me the look.
I'm giving you the look because you're always... I love this ride. Dinosaur is such a great ride.
Okay.
It's a great ride.
But here's the thing, though. I think when something new opens in a park, like Pandora, that whole world of Avatar, it's amazing, and it kind of overshadows everything else a little bit. And I think this is a ride I don't hear a lot of people talk about necessarily, and I think it's really fun. I like the excitement. It's the same type of ride vehicle and movement that the Indiana Jones ride is at Disneyland in California.
I'm pretty sure it's the same track.
Like the same,
I think they just copied and pasted
it's the same thing,
it.
but the theme is different. And Indiana Jones is one of my favorite rides at Disneyland for a long time. And so I really like it. I like the sneaky ride photo where you don't expect it, and there it is, and you look like a jerk in your picture.
Yeah, every ride photo of me on Dinosaur is me going... So, I don't know, I look like a...
You know what? I really like it. So for me, that's a little underrated because it's so far overshadowed by the world of Pandora, and people, I think, forget about it. I think it ends up sometimes being a ride for people that are like, well, Flight of Passage is a forever wait, so let's ride Dinosaur and then see if, you know what I mean? It almost seems like a little bit of an afterthought, and it just happens to be an attraction that I really like.
Yeah, and so, I think that it's... Is it just me, or is it tucked in a weird spot?
It's kind of off in its own little area. It's not part of the main hub of Dinoland USA, which is a section of Animal Kingdom. It's kind of tucked away a little bit. So I don't know if it's that people just don't pay attention that it's there, or they just don't talk about it as much because it's not as popular, and it's not the best ride ever, don't get me wrong. But it's one of those things that I really enjoy it, and I like to go every time that we go.
Yeah, I know you love it so much.
So
and
you tolerate it because I like it?
So let me clarify. At the beginning of this, my point in saying I love that ride so much. I love that ride so much. I feel like it's not underrated because you overrate it so much.
Oh, to you?
Yeah. So
okay.
I don't know. I think maybe that makes sense because it is underrated to you because you love it so much that other people are if anybody poops on it a little bit, you're it's the best ride ever.
Super defensive about it.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was my over and under, so all we've got is your underrated for Animal Kingdom. What is it?
Yeah, I'm gonna say this, and I'm going to get people that are going to spit milkshakes out at their screen for sure. I'm going to keep it in Pandora. I think underrated is Flight of Passage.
Oh,
hear me out.
Come on.
Hear me out.
There is no way
I said hear me out.
that's underrated
Hear me
on
out.
any level.
It is so hyped. It is as rated can be.
Okay.
But I think that because it cannot be hyped enough, especially to people that have never done it, that it's underrated. Because you can't stress enough to a new person for Flight of Passage
How much they should ride
cool of a ride that is. And no, I really don't think that because everybody says how cool it is. I just think that it is such a stellar experience. It's in a good way, just that full onslaught onto your senses of the smells and the physical
feeling.
things that you touch.
Well, the immersion is just so strong.
Yeah, and I mean, and with any ride, like with Soarin' and things like that you need to be immersed into it to get the full effect. You know, you can ruin it by doing this or by doing that or you know, something like that, or looking behind
you.
you.
Pay attention to what's on the screen.
Yeah.
And I mean, we rode it our last trip this fall for the first time, and I remember we went to Animal Kingdom for a half day, and we were looking at wait times. We had just eaten at Satuli Canteen, which I recommend is very good. And I looked at the wait time, and the wait time for Flight of Passage was only like 50 minutes. And I said to him, we could not get a fast pass for that ride. I said, this might be our only chance to ride this, and this is probably the lowest wait that this is going to be. And remember when we were in line, the guy in front of us was like, oh, we waited 2 hours for this earlier, and we would gladly wait 2 hours
we're
for
at
this.
Satuli, and the wait is 50 minutes. So I grab my bowl, and
and
we
got out of there.
We scuttled over there. And those guys, shout out to the two guys that surely aren't going to see this, that we were in front, that were locals in front of us
they
in line.
couldn't talk it up enough. They were like thrilled to hear that we had never ridden it, and they were like, "Oh, it's so great! Like,
the guy
as good as you think it's gonna be better."
Yeah, he's like, is like this? Because the way we were talking about it, we're like, "Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that!"
We were all interested in the ride, the queue, because we'd never been in there.
Right. So he's like, "Is this y'all's first time riding this ride?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, like she said, if there's anything you've heard about this ride, about how good it is, they're not wrong." And so I just think that you cannot overhype this enough to someone who's never done it. And if I have any tip ever for any Fast Pass stuff moving forward in the future, I'll say it now before Galaxy's Edge puts Fast Passes in, because I'm sure that's going to be gone in a heartbeat. When you can book your trip, Fast Passes, make your first one Flight of Passage. I don't care what day you have.
Whatever you can get.
Your Animal Kingdom day. Your first Fast Pass needs to be Flight of Passage. And I hope that I'm not wrong or misleading to you, and hope you don't hate it.
You know what? I agree with that. And the thing that I think is the coolest about this ride, if you've never seen the movie Avatar, it doesn't really matter. Now, it is cooler, I think, if you have seen the movie, because you understand the world a little bit more.
Yeah, but
it doesn't mean
right.
You're not going to be totally immersed and amazed and have a really good experience on the ride. The only people that may struggle a little bit are people that get motion sick. But I'm a person that gets motion sick, and my personal experience was I didn't have a problem.
And another thing to mention about Flight of Passage too, this is one of the few rides at Disney where your size can matter, and I'm a heavy guy, so I made it. Look at me, I did it. But tall people, I hear, have a problem too.
Yeah.
So be careful.
It can be a little limiting.
There's a seat out front. Sit in it and test it out before you go out there.
Yeah, definitely test it out. And for something like that, if you have kids or younger kids, make sure you check the height requirements, because it would be pretty disappointing to get all the way up there and then they're not able to ride it. But I think that not super little kids, but kids that, I don't know what the height requirements.
It's like 46 inches or over, you can get on about anything.
even though there are a little bit of restrictions depending on height and body size, it's still an attraction that a lot of people I think can enjoy. And for me, I guess I agree with you on this a little bit. I almost hate to admit it.
Why do you hate to admit it?
Because I don't like agreeing with you about everything. On some level, it is underrated because some people are like, look at that wait, it's not worth it. We had people, more than one person, say that they've waited a long time for it, and
would do it again.
Of us, we saw that it was only 50 minutes. That's why we came back. We waited 2 hours, and we actually had our full Animal Kingdom full Animal Kingdom day the following morning, and we rope dropped Flight of Passage, and
I almost ran.
We were way back in line. It felt like we were, but the line actually, we were 20 minutes.
Yeah, not even.
Not even. And it was because they hadn't let anyone into like the queue yet. So the line started at the very entrance of the queue, and that's why. But it seemed deceptive because we're like, well, dang, we rope dropped this, so we're way, down in this line, and it's not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a must-do. If we can do it every time, that's a must-do for me. And I guess that's it.
Yeah, I'll recap real quick. My overrated was Navi River Journey, and yours was?
My overrated was Kilimanjaro Safaris.
And my underrated was Flight of Passage, and yours was?
My underrated was Dinosaur. And I guess that's it for our first episode of Over Under Animal Kingdom Edition.
Yeah.
So leave some comments down below. What do you think? What are your opinions on what we talked about, or what
are some things that you think are over, underrated,
exactly.
and we'll take it from there. So
thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.